That's all. It was faithfulness to a steady foundation that established Kondo's position as the strongest in the Imperial Army. Significantly different from Carrera, who acts on her emotions, the two are somewhat oddly similar. Kondo asked in a cordial tone as she shook her head. That's tricky. How did you know I was going to use magic? Kondo also replied to Carrera while regaining his breath. Well, that's easy. Because I think that's what I would do if I were you. I see. It's really easy to understand. Once again, Carrera developed a fondness for this Kondo, along with a strong realization that she had never seen the same type of formidable enemy so far. You can't say that by observing the flow of magic when it's activated. I'd do that, or something. If I were you, you'd be looking for a reason. Carrera thought unpleasantly, but couldn't help the pleasant expression that crossed her face. Having an opponent that you can fight with all your might is enough to be enjoyable alone. Rhine the Primordial was a strong one identified by Guy and should have had a satisfying sparring session with her, but Carrera's provocation never succeeded. This kind of regrettable incident made Carrera upset and angry, but with Kondo as an opponent, it felt like she could fight enough for her heart's content. For Carrera, it's the process of going head-to-head that matters more than winning or losing. That's great. That's really great. It's Kondo, right? You're the best enemy. Kondo snorted back at Carrera's heartfelt praise. Without words, state your opinion by the sword. Sharp chopping blows stabbed at Carrera in succession. Dancing the sword with only the left hand, but the path of the sword without any deviation, was even more beautiful than the martial arts that fascinated the people. Carrera faced Kondo's successive chopping blows, relying on Ajira's skill and her own instincts to judge and dodge. In a brief interlude of sword blades, Carrera discovered a little habit of Kondo's. Knife in left hand, gun in right. Although it was just Kondo's fighting form, the momentary sight of him firing would move along with his fingertips, as if he was watching the line of fire of a bullet. No one would have been able to notice this little habit if it weren't for Carrera, but it was enough of a fatal flaw to determine victory or defeat. This is it. Carrera swung the sword away at the perfect time. Unable to respond, Kondo, who was ready to shoot, raised his gun stiffly and took down Carrera's sword. The reaction speed is simply amazing, but Carrera won't just stop there. Don't underestimate me. That takes away one of your trump cards. Twisting his body hard to adjust his posture to receive the attack, causing Kondo to be unable to counter the powerful force of Carrera. So, Kondo unstintingly let go of the gun in his hand. The large Southern-style automatic pistol grunted and rolled to the ground. Having avenged Kondo's death, Carrera was rejoicing. However, there was a creepy scent, and feeling it for an instant, Carrera followed her instinct and quickly ducked away. Immediately after, Kondo's sword slashed through the air. Geez, didn't you get it? What landed on the ground with a flutter was Carrera's severed left hand, the skeleton of the kamikaze not paying the slightest attention, cut off by Kondo's sword. You. Emotionally charged Carrera. But inwardly, calmly, though shaken by the humiliation, she accepted this reality. There's no way to beat Kondo at this rate. The proof was that Kondo was now wielding a military knife with both hands. A perfect form over time, completely different from his style so far. Kondo hadn't intended to rely on the gun in his hand from the beginning, but instead had deliberately revealed a crack to lure Carrera into the bait, with no other explanation than that. But if that was the case, it meant that Carrera was despised by Kondo. The sword alone is enough to gain the upper hand, but it's still a little tricky. It's a strategy to kill me easily. It's inexcusable that such a powerful master would not show his strength and do such a despicable thing. Aware of this, Carrera roared. How dare you underestimate me, a human? Carrera wanted to go along with the rage and shatter Kondo into pieces, ready to step forward. And yet, just then. One moment, please, Lord Carrera. Ajira, transformed into a knife, hitchhiked over. Carrera and Ajira were now in a state of near unity, and naturally also connected through thought communication, and were able to have a conversation in their hearts. And so, in a million times extended sphere of consciousness under the power of Carrera, the two began a conversation. "What do you want to say, Ajira? I'm so busy right now, I'll kill you if you interfere." "Please calm down, Lord Carrera. If you lose your cool, you'll be in Kondo's clutches." "Of course I know that. But that guy fooled me, as a king? It's absolutely intolerable, isn't it?" Lately, Ajira has basically taken on the duty of stopping Carrera, but Ajira has also never seen a Carrera as raging as today. If she wasn't stopped, Carrera would surely be defeated. Ajira continues to be persuasive, trying to convince Carrera. "Listen to me, Kondo didn't rely on the sword alone in the first place because he despised Carrera Summer. Why, you're underestimating me, no matter what you think." "No, it's not, it's just the opposite." "Huh?" "It is precisely because of the importance attached to the threat from Lord Carrera that Kondo hides his true abilities. Not anyone is as strong as Lord Carrera, who was very strong from birth. Take the fight against the strongest enemy seriously, that's something you'll do as a warrior." "So what? Are you trying to say that he approved of me?" "Exactly." Ajira seized the opportunity to articulate his views with great force. That stance of Kondo's had been said to be in a state of completion, but its essence was still that of a swordsman who had inherited Ajira's school. There is no doubt that the other person is serious, and it is for this reason that it is not revealed at the outset, but rather that a shift is made at the crucial moment. It is precisely because of the fact that he sees Carrera as his strongest enemy that he is able to use such a small trick. If not, there's no need to craft a fake move like that to increase risk. "I see, that's true, if you say so." Ajira's persuasion played a role, and Carrera calmed down and accepted the statement. Ajira breathed a sigh of relief. "I've worried you, Ajira. Thanks to you, I've come to my senses." "That's great. I won't let you worry anymore, I promise you." Signaling the end of the conversation with this declaration, Carrera turned to face Kondo again, and then, slowly, landed a rippling punch to her face. Such a serious blow that one wonders if Carrera's head will explode. However, Carrera was calm and flashed a smile at Kondo. "Oh, I didn't scare you, did I? I'm sorry, slightly lost my cool and thought you were insulting me. However, human beings are so powerful that they will use all sorts of tricks to win. It's an idea we wouldn't have had, slightly surprised." Though laughing like this, Carrera also stopped her contempt for her enemy. It was no accident, but if it hadn't been for Ajira, Kondo would have been caught in the act. The Carrera of the present is different from the Carrera of the past, who can do whatever she wants. As a loyal servant of the demon Lord Rimuru, she acts in accordance with the orders of her lord. It's just that it's not okay to be defeated and die in battle, which is absolutely forbidden. Carrera warned herself in her mind. This punch was for that purpose, and to show one's own awareness. Carrera acknowledged Kondo. Acknowledged that he is on the same level of existence as her. The casual Carrera is like a changed person, thinking seriously. What a surprise. The pride of being the strongest race always made her unconsciously fail to use her full strength in fighting with others. However, it was mistakenly assumed that Kondo wasn't giving it his all and she had to leave it to Ajira to correct her. Realizing her lapse, Carrera finally got serious. Kondo looked at the grin that was showing on Carrera's face, who was in a miserable situation, and felt that it was beautiful. Is the demon going to give it her all? As a fragile human being, there's no way to welcome it. For the first time, a change of expression occurred, seeing Carrera as the enemy. Then I, too, must be your opponent. Kondo, who made this declaration, put on the armor for the first time. No longer a uniform that relied on the force of will to materialize, but a pure white spirit suit made from the mythical level changes given by Rudra. That is, a spirit dress made in imitation of an old Imperial Navy garment. The appearance doesn't seem to have changed much, but the aura on display seems to have changed to a different person. For Kondo, this garment from the naval era was also the one that meant death. As a lieutenant, he swore to bear the guilt of letting his men die tragically. In order to be able to keep this realization in mind, I fought in these garments. Carrera looked at Kondo, liberating a deep and massive magic. Next, give your name. I am the loyal servant of Lord Rimuru, one of the 12 patrons, Carrera, the Menace Lord. Bet on my glory and I'll kill you. Kondo responded. Herr, Lieutenant of the Imperial Navy, Tatsuya Kondo. I am now the head of the Imperial Emperor's Order of the Near Guard, and I accept your challenge. The two confronted each other, quietly building up their strength. From there, the real battle began. Carrera picked up the left arm that had fallen to one side and gently brought the sections back together, and just like that, it was restored as if nothing had happened. That doesn't make sense. Don't say that. After all, it's a precious body given by Lord Rimuru, so I can't leave any scars on it. The conversation sounded light-hearted, but both sides were peering into each other for a break. The reason Kondo didn't make a move while Carrera healed her arm was because Kondo had certain thoughts. Without a gun in his hand, Kondo could only fight with a sword, which was of course the original gesture of my Zushin livestream, but on the flip side, it also meant that he didn't have any reserve backhand. Kondo is now in full swing. In other words, Kondo bet his whole self. With two swords in hand now, Kondo had the confidence to not lose to any enemy. Kondo grasps the movements of Carrera through his unique skill of interpreting, and the movements of his muscles are readable by the flow of magic throughout his body and the breath of his magic. When this power is combined with the ultimate power, King of Execution, it can perform far beyond the unique power field. Therefore, he did not see an abnormal increase in the emitted power of Carrera. That vast energy is a symbol of Carrera's tyrannical style, but in spite of that, I wonder if there is a clear will to unify and the flow of energy is unclogged. The energy that would normally have produced an explosive torrent was perfectly incorporated into Carrera's domination. What a monster, Kondo thought to himself. The wrist wound that was so hard to cut off is now invisible, and even the clothes have been repaired. What a joke. What gathered that fierce power was Ajira's demon blade that had changed into a single heart, and was able to make a complete circle of power because it had transformed into a single heart with Carrera. This was not good for Kondo, who sensed something even more tricky than that. Incredibly, a strong crystallization of power was forming in the center of Carrera's magic. Kondo had a clue as to what that was. It is something that can only be seen when the form of the heart becomes solid. Acknowledging this, Kondo took action. No matter how powerful the enemy is, it must be eliminated as quickly as possible. It was because of this judgment that he wore these clothes, which symbolizes his full commitment. That is to say, defeat is not allowed and victory must be achieved no matter what means are used. It is the winning side that is righteous. While examining Carrera, Kondo finished his preparations. The only remaining weapon was a sword, pouring its full force into Carrera's beheading. That's good, that's good. That look of no confusion, that's exciting. Ignoring Carrera's excited shouts, Kondo waved the sword in his hand. Although Carrera's demon sword caught this blow, Kondo's military sword was indeed incomparably powerful, and if that demon sword hadn't boarded Ajira's will, it might have been shattered by this blow. Kondo furthermore continues to apply the stand-up, "You guys?" The sharp, heavy chopping blow caused Carrera to not help but let out a groan. The secret of its power lay in the will that was injected into the saber. Kondo's ultimate skill, the King of Execution, is not only able to attach power to bullets, but also by placing Kondo's will, or even his soul, in the saber, which is both Kondo's killer weapon and his true gesture when he's serious. Under the ensuing onslaught from Kondo, Carrera can only defend with one touch. Kondo intends to fight before Carrera awakens to the ultimate skill, using all sorts of tricks to pursue Carrera. Even though Carrera controlled her violence and exerted great power, Kondo remained unchanged and flicked away the entire attack. In terms of combat skills, Kondo is a step above Carrera. The barely sustained sparring was the result of a combination of Carrera's massive amount of mana and Ajira's strength. If it wasn't for that, Carrera would have been wiped out long ago. Now, too, the chop that contains the power of the exterminating bullet cuts open the left side of Carrera's belly, with limbs wounded several times by the chopping blows of the boarding spellbomb effect. Carrera's magic circuits have gone into a frenzy, and as a result, even Carrera's and Ajira's assimilation has begun to take a toll. Carrera groaned and glared at Kondo with a grimace. Miscalculation. I knew that Kondo was strong, but I thought that I could always deal with it by using my real skills. But Kondo is not that good of an opponent. Even in the face of Carrera, who had borrowed Ajira's power, Kondo was still the Superman above it. Human. Even though awakened as a saint, I can't believe that a human could drive me to such a state. Contemplating her own ineptitude, Carrera covered her right hand over the left side of her belly that kept leaking magic after being chopped open. Even if one wanted to reply, the effect would be minimal as the magic loop went into a frenzy. Originally, an injury of this magnitude would have repaired itself without any attention, but now, even with deliberate treatment, it still looks like this. No matter how bashful and rude Carrera was, she could recognize that the current state of affairs was very bad indeed. Whether the will is strong or not, can sway the power. What's more, Kondo is a character who has gained extreme power through his own power, while Carrera spends her days at will because she has an infinite lifespan, and Kondo is simply incomparable. Only now, along with the pain of torturing herself, did Carrera finally understand. There is no point in being given skills. The ability to truly live up to its essence can only be acquired through one's own desire. The rank of the race, the strength of the physical abilities, and the life force, all of which were overwhelmingly powerful for Carrera to occupy. In terms of skill, thanks to Ajira, there was a battle of attrition. Still, it was not possible to win. Not only that, but they were on the verge of defeat. If this goes on, are we going to lose? Which means to be wiped out, dead. The strongest me, I have one of the primordials of the demons? This, absolutely cannot be agreed upon. The glory of Carrera could not allow it. Not to mention, it would go against the orders of Carrera's favorite lord, the demon Lord Rimuru. If it turned out that way, it would be a big mistake that could not be redeemed by killing herself 1,000,000 times, and Carrera felt the fear. The inability to comply with Rimuru's orders had terrified Carrera, who had never before known what fear was. It's the only thing I absolutely disagree with. Carrera hissed loudly, looking angrily at Kondo with blood-filled eyes. Forcibly regenerate the wound and posture it. Carrera prayed even more deeply and intensely. Praying for victory over this man in front of you. So far, Carrera had fought by her own pure demonic power. But that alone will not do. It is absolutely impossible to reach people who are at the ultimate skill level. Diablo, for example, and Kondo, for example, in front of he. In the face of people who have awakened to the ultimate skill, she cannot win, and the top of the guy Crimson is not even compared to. Thinking only about adding strength is not going to work. If that's all, struggling no matter what, it's just bait for the strong. Being pressed so hard, it finally dawned on Carrera. Those who want to fight the really strong must understand themselves more deeply. What is necessary for this is an unparalleled strong will. As a spiritual being, Carrera sought this moment of the will power of the essence. Well, let me help a little. She seemed to hear such a sound. In the next moment, the something that was so moving deep inside of Carrera felt a clear shape forming. Carrera searched her consciousness toward that. The one that gradually took shape by Carrera's determination, by her prayers. So far, it's all been a rampaging power within herself, always used again only through repressive control, but Carrera sees this power as her own. Then, liberation opens up. This ability is in need of a name. Oh my power, this is your name. In order to complete the task given to me by Lord Rimuru, become my power and liberate the power to go further. Your name is Abaddon, the King of Death. Abaddon, having the meaning of destroyer. Also, the King of Death. The power couldn't have been more appropriate for King of Destruction Carrera. Carrera finally got it. The absolute power that can destroy everything. King of Death. This is the figurative of Carrera's desire. Once liberated, it is able to bring about definite destruction, fearful empowerment for the adversary. For the first time, because of her encounter with a strong enemy, Carrera became hungry for power. Thus, the time had come for the battle between Carrera and Kondo to be decided. This isn't a joke, Kondo thought. To Kondo, it was like a mirage when he tried his best to push Carrera into a desperate situation, only to awaken the ultimate skill before his eyes. On several occasions, Kondo had intended to inflict a death blow on Carrera. However, Carrera got back up again no matter how many times she was knocked down. Use the power of the barrier breaker bomb to break the barrier, and use the power of the spell breaker bomb to disrupt Carrera's magic circuit, then actually cause Carrera to accumulate damage, and finally use the power of the destroyer bomb to end the other party. It's long overdue for a winner. However, Kondo, who had put out his full strength, not only failed to take down Carrera, but also awakened her strength. Kondo was deeply aware of his mistake. That's true, if only there was still a kamikaze bomb. The thought would arise, perhaps because Kondo was a little more squeamish. The divine extermination, kamikaze, bomb was a once-a-day killer weapon, the strongest hit, yet it had just been used to weaken Veldora not long ago. Craving for something you can't use in a fight that bets your life and death really doesn't seem like a foolish act Kondo would do. The enemy, who was already strong enough, had acquired an unknown power, and the mere knowledge of it brought the mood into a gloom. Kondo, however, still tries to lift his spirits. Since they were already wearing the garments, they could only fight to the end without faltering. Kondo couldn't help but spit out his feelings to Carrera for the first time. You guys, this is so unconscionable. It is also natural to make a mockery of human frailty. The interethnic hierarchy gap is too great to be filled. Even Kondo couldn't help but grumble about it. Hearing this, Carrera lifted her chin in satisfaction. Ah, of course. After all, we are the strongest race, but you are not unreasonable enough, are you? It was the highest compliment that Carrera could utter. Carrera had already identified the other with being equal to herself, so in a show of utmost respect, went all out to launch the challenge. Aiming her sword at Kondo, she set up her stance without a care in the world, and Carrera let her right and left hands unleash the King of Death, bringing her enormous power back into a circle. Between Kondo and Carrera, a stream of white and black glow overflowed. By transforming the huge mana into energy, the afterglow alone seemed to blow people away. Carrera concentrated, harnessing all of her energy. I'll let you see what I've got. I'd really like to say no. Oh, don't be such a party pooper. It's because I identify with you that I'll show you my best magic. Kondo had a bad feeling when he heard the other party's words. She doesn't care about the mood of others, that is the demon named Carrera. Leon also suffered for it, but at the time, Carrera was just amusing herself. While saying so can only seem more egregious in her nature, it was a much better experience for Kondo, who had to use the serious Carrera as a rival. Among the four primordials of the Demon Lord, including Diablo, the current Carrera prides herself on having the largest amount of mana, which she had not been able to control perfectly before, and this shortcoming was eliminated when she obtained the Death King Abaddon. The current Carrera, with her dominance over magic, is able to match Veilgrind. I'll send you destruction. Disperse. Final collapse annihilation wave. It was the ultimate magic that overrode the gravity collapse. It's the biggest and strongest attack magic in Carrera's ideal. By placing matter evoked from the bottom of hell in the gravitational collapse force field, the magic was created that contained a great energy rush far beyond imagination. It is difficult to control this energy since it is not necessary to say how difficult it is, just to add directionality to this energy. Originally this was not the magic that was supposed to be used on the planet, but Carrera unleashed this magic without any confusion. If one step of control goes wrong, even the planet could be wiped out. It was not successful when practiced in the underworld, and was used for the first time in the material world. The magic that had not been used successfully so far was used without any hesitation. If Testarossa and others were present, they must have stopped Carrera anyway, but the people who could stop Carrera here did not exist. Even though Ajira was present, it was too cruel to ask him to stop Carrera. It would be better to say that it is not Kondo who feels the most fear right now, but Ajira who knows how scary that magic is. Then, speaking of Kondo, he felt a whiff of danger at the sight of Carrera's preparatory movements and unfolded the King of Execution before he heard Carrera's announcement. This ability to quickly judge a situation is what makes Kondo what he is. However, this time the opponent was too bad. The final collapse annihilation wave is a great magic that is based on the premise of Carrera's absurd magic, and its scope is so huge that if this place is not otherworldly, I don't know how much of a disaster it will cause. Maybe even this otherworld will be destroyed, so Kondo speculated. If things turned out that way, then all the matter on this magic ray that targeted Kondo would be wiped out. Kondo saw through that fact. If the otherworld is destroyed, Emperor Rudra is also likely to be involved. Even if Rudra's defense was foolproof, there was no guarantee that there wouldn't be an eventuality that had to be prevented from happening. It's more than that. Kondo was also aware of something even more problematic. From the way Carrera was staged, even this vicious magic was just a decoy. Even after carrying this blow, the real attack from the demon blade should still come from behind. That would be impossible to cope with. No matter the sacrifice, the path to survival cannot be opened without overcoming this blow. Kondo was well aware. Put his knife in its sheath and wait for the right moment. Then, make a move while Carrera unleashes her magic. Gamble everything on yourself, draw the knife. Yaezakura, Yahasanori. This skill, which Hakuru had demonstrated, is reproduced here. The power that is incorporated in this is the kamikaze bomb, which should only be used once a day. If the limit cannot be exceeded here, what awaits Kondo will only be broken. Because of this, Kondo bets on all his possibilities with the confidence that he can do it. The glow of the power of the soul is even greater. As for whether that glow was Kondo's or Carrera's, at the very least, both were undoubtedly going all out. Kondo's sword cut through the raging energy rushes generated by the final collapse annihilation wave. A smile emerged from the corners of Carrera's mouth as she opened her eyes wide. Kondo's whole body was pervaded by intense pain. Even the mythical grade garments, which possessed the strongest defense, had failed to defend against this breaking power. However, Kondo was not timid. Aiming with conviction at Carrera's head, trying to get the 8 flowers to bloom. Carrera, on the other hand, was a step above Kondo. It's not enough. Let's see, after combining Ajira's experience, my strongest skill. That is both words and not words. In a flash, Kondo's thoughts were conveyed to Carrera. It was the Momochi's sword flash that surpassed Kondo's draw speed. The name of this skill is called Maizuru, 100 Flowers Dazzle. Under this unstoppable tyranny, Kondo's saber snapped. Following that, Carrera's final strike slashes off Kondo's shoulder. Kondo felt a loss of strength throughout his body. In fact, it was beyond the limits of the body a long time ago. He closed his eyes and collapsed on his back. Kondo's life was coming to an end. Halfway through. Thinking this way, he laughed at himself. As a result, nothing has been done. Either to protect the homeland or to keep the covenant with Rudra. Be my friend. I didn't fulfill my agreement with you. What surfaced in Kondo's mind was a feeling of regret. The thought of a pact that didn't materialize made the heart feel like it was about to burst open. Tatsuya, I have a favor to ask of you. I'll do as I am told. I'll do anything I can as your friend. That's right, it's karma. to convey his gratitude to this Rudra, who calls himself a friend and gives his existence in this world meaning. Even so, that request is too cruel, isn't it? A long time ago, I asked Damrada for a favor. If I loses my ideals, I hope you, as a friend, can stop me. But I have lived too long, and Damrada is too gentle to kill me himself. I'm sorry that I made such a big request of him. That's so, Tatsuya. If it were you, would you be able to calmly make a judgment to kill me? Go and get in the way of Damrada. You stop me. No, think of it my way. For he himself equally wanted Rudra to live. Rudra is calm, sensible and full of dominance. He is the vision of Kondo and the hard-won lord. This man stopped Kondo, who had failed to protect his country and was about to commit suicide in this world, and became Kondo's friend. The great hero, Emperor Rudra. Despite this, Kondo agreed to Rudra's request because Kondo knew Rudra's bitterness. Rudra's body, his radiant soul, had long since reached its limit. Presumably the result of countless reincarnations to control the special powers of the King of Justice. Relying on his own unique skill of interpreting readers, Kondo understood this fact more deeply than anyone else. Probably, more than Veilgrind understood. Veilgrind had become blinded by her love for Rudra, and no doubt would have been furious if she had learned of this request Rudra had made to Damrada and Kondo. Rudra's request to Kondo was, in a sense, justified. As long as it is promised, it must be kept. If asked why, it's because conventions are such things. However, the time for fulfilling the engagement will come much later. That's because Rudra is still very much in control at the moment. But is that really the case? Thinking about it now, there has long been a small sense of disconnection. The icy look that Rudra occasionally showed was also too cold when making judgments. Kondo only knew Rudra in this state, but he knew that Damrada was thus distressed. If Rudra is indeed alive, what need is there for Damrada to agonize over it? It's really suspicious when you think about it. Since when? When exactly did Damrada really start acting? Could it be that I'm missing something very important? Following orders to obstruct Damrada's operations may have been a serious lapse. Having just met Rudra, he was indeed a radiant presence. Kondo, however, failed to notice Rudra's deterioration. The moment he realized this fact, Kondo's mind became clear. It's like the inner shackles are liberated. So, I was already at the mercy of the King of Justice. What a wimp, he can't help but sigh. That's right. Instead of getting in his way when Damrada was preparing to kill Rudra, he should have taken the lead. That way, he would have stopped Rudra. Me, how out of character is this? It is now irreparable. The reason why Kondo had been freed from the domination of the King of Justice wasn't clear, except that he couldn't even move a finger now. One can only wait quietly for death. I'm so useless. Whether it's carrying the pain with you or alleviating it, I failed to do so. And, the covenant that brings you relief also. The task of stopping Rudra was probably not going to happen no matter how much thought was put into it. It can only be so, with remorse, to death. Hey, don't go to sleep, keep fighting. As if to interrupt someone else's sleep, such talk came. After opening his eyes slightly, he saw the enemy who had been fighting a deadly battle with himself until just now, looking over at him with a very irritated probe. The demon with the shining blonde hair had a smile on her face as if she could chase away a sleeping demon. Sure enough, very beautiful. Don't say such strong words. I'm dying, how can I keep fighting? Huh? I don't think there's a winner yet. A showdown? Yeah, sure, you're so unreasonable. His own meaning should have been impossible to convey to the other party, and Kondo smiled faintly even as he listened to Carrera's words. Carrera's energy was almost depleted, and presumably in a state of near annihilation. Laughter welled up at the thought of it. He tries to get to his feet but fails miserably. It's ugly. I'm sure I didn't get anything done. So free and pure compared to himself, the demon before him. I'm jealous, Really? His heart really thinks so. So Kondo spoke words that even he didn't know the meaning of. There is a request. With my gun, please kill His Majesty. He wanted to entrust his mission to the enemy. What am I doing, making such a stupid request to an opponent who's been fighting until now? The aspirations of the defeated are only met with ridicule. But somehow it came out anyway. Carrera picked up the large Southern-style automatic pistol that had landed on the ground. It's broken. That's true, Kondo thought hazily. One is surprisingly naive to think that the other might listen to one's wishes. The demons are not so gentle. Kondo understood very well that reality is relentless. His awareness fades. Even as a saint who became a spiritual being, the original Kondo was only a human being, and if his soul was destroyed, he could not be resurrected. A strike from Carrera dealt Kondo a nasty blow. He can actually feel the collapse from the end. At this stage, resurrection is no longer possible. Humph, just because the toy broke you gave up? It's not like you're the one who gave me a taste of pain. It's a real bummer to have a fight like this. I really didn't expect to be encouraged by the enemy. Kondo used his last breath to reveal a bitter smile. It is indeed pleasant. I'm so ashamed of myself, I feel funny. After saying this, there was no desire to maintain consciousness. But wait, don't die yet. Let me kill the Emperor or whatever. How stupid. What's the payoff? It's common sense that a deed is necessary to get a demon to work for you. Originally, Carrera was absolutely incapable of engaging the demon. However, for some reason, she felt that she could not help listening to Kondo's wishes. But working for free definitely doesn't cut it. Facing Carrera, who looked a bit flustered, Kondo couldn't help but laugh. It's really enjoyable. He is the devil of the enemy. This seemingly somewhat embarrassed panic gesture of hers healed Kondo's heart. Everything I have, all of it, including my soul, please. He's already out of words. With the last of his strength, Kondo opened his eyes, looking towards Carrera with a strong will. To believe the demon's words is to laugh at yourself. But still, he carved that beautiful face into his mind and entrusted his wishes to her. Hopefully that thought would pass to Carrera. Perhaps it's just Kondo's wishful thinking. Even so, he's betting on this last hope in order to save his unhelpful self. The sound of his inept voice was conveyed to Carrera. This wish, I have received. I, in the name of Carrera, the King of Destruction, recognize the deed. I'll make your wish come true. Hearing this serious declaration, Kondo flashed a smile. The already disengaged hand made a movement by will alone, reaching for Carrera. What his fingers touched was the pistol that Carrera asserted had been damaged. The moment Kondo's fingers made contact, the large Southern-style automatic pistol blossomed with a golden glow, bathed in Kondo's power, and the material of the pistol gradually changed to mythical grade. Kondo's soul is also taken over by Carrera through a pistol, however, it does not contain a heart core, Carrera knew. A person who reaches the realm of sinlessness after enlightenment, even if his soul is bound, cannot dispose of the core of his heart at will. Liberated from reincarnation without any constraints and set off towards the agreed place. That is, liberation. It made Carrera feel lonely. Humph, that's no fun. It is rare to meet such a resolute opponent. Just as she whispered a small sigh. Then unite the King of Execution into the ultimate skill, the King of Death. It felt like hearing that. Carrera hurriedly turned her awareness to the pistol in her hand. The pistol shines with a more dazzling golden light, as if it was silently saying, "So you're not lonely anymore." The pistol was undoubtedly Kondo's relic, and today it was Carrera's new partner. So it is, you, who are with me. She finished and saw the pistol seem to flash. At the same time, it was felt that a force was flowing into the body. You're too rough with using your magic. Let me help you use me more skillfully. It seemed like Kondo could be heard saying so. The next moment, She understood everything. In a short moment, Kondo's power was turned into possession. Don't treat me like a child, nosy guy. The man was so arrogant even to the end, Carrera thought so. No longer feeling lonely, Carrera rose to her feet. Congratulations on this beautiful victory, Ajira is very impressed. You're not bad. You deserve credit for living this long. I'm a little embarrassed to be complimented by Lord Carrera. Although Ajira was laughing, he was already bruised all over his body. After being injected with a huge amount of magic power by Carrera, she was able to withstand Kondo's sword skills with her blade, which almost shattered under the impact, and now that the changes in her blade had been lifted, all the attacks she had endured were returned to Ajira, and it was a bit strange that she hadn't been destroyed as a result. Ajira, however, was all smiles of satisfaction. This man, Kondo, is a descendant of your disciple, right? It seems so. A creature like man is not to be underestimated. The technology will be passed down from generation to generation and will continue to improve. Ajira nodded happily. But he's better than you. It's a little something. Ajira frowned again in displeasure. Better than this old man, but that man is an exception. If we fight only with swords, the one who wins will be this old man. You can say that. Say it and the two will laugh. In this regard, the two are quite similar. Ahead of Carrera's line of sight was the otherworldly rift that was crumbling, and in the rift a glimpse of Emperor Rudra's seated figure could be seen. Come on, the fight's just beginning. With a fearless smile, as usual, Carrera walked out. Whoever dares to stand in front of us, let him taste the horror carved into his bones. Ajira followed behind Carrera. He was seriously injured, but he looked unconcerned and at ease. The enemy survives. And, most importantly, the promise must be fulfilled. Single-digit rank 3 Granite, the hero who has sustained the Empire from long ago, a central figure in laying the foundations of the Empire and achieving peace for the millennium. He was once praised as a military god by the imperial subjects and was also a great man who went down in history. Now that he has retired from the surface arena, he has been appointed as the head of the 4 horsemen in the capacity of Emperor Rudra's heartbeat. He is a fighter who is skilled with all weapons and fighting techniques and is physically tough. Although he is no less than 2,000 years old, his black hair and short-shaved black beard still give him a vibrant impression. Confronting Granite was the Flare Lord, Benimaru. The two males stood opposite each other in the middle of the roundabout. I am Granite, Guardian of the Empire. Benimaru. You can consider me Lord Raimuru's adjutant. The names of the two sides have been reported and henceforth only war will be fought. Ah, wait a minute. Aren't you going to hear me out? I'll see what you have to say. Nothing, it's simple. I have investigated about you, and there are reports that you are quite a strong man. That would be an honor. Heh, that's not blowing your mind. I've defeated a number of strong men before, so I think I'm pretty good at it. Even so, I think you're qualified, and an ordinary demon lord would be no match for you. What are you trying to say? At this moment, Benimaru was starting to get impatient in his heart. He did not hate to negotiate, but now that the fighting was heating up, it was no longer appropriate to talk freely, and if the other side had intended to surrender, it was a different matter, as could be seen from Granite's appearance. Instead, it's like intentionally dissuading the Benimaru. The idea is spot on. I was surprised that you were so strong. Kondo was also unhelpful, as the Intelligence Bureau's negligence brought us to a crisis in the Empire. If there are more losses than expected, it will be more than a showdown. So I thought I'd stop here and take an oath to be one of my men, huh? If you surrender, I swear that you and your men, I will take responsibility for their care. What a self-serving proposal. The proposal to propose an armistice is too much to be beaten, and in the opinion of a third party, it will only give rise to such thoughts. However, this is not the case. Granite never thought of such a thing as defeat. Only because they had lost a lot of battle power, They planned to absorb Benimaru and the others in order to replenish their battle power. Benimaru had intuitively explored this point, adding a layer of anger to his heart. Is this guy going to use us as pawns? However, to the extent that there seems to be a corresponding strength to support his confidence. Benimaru calmly commented on Granit. Since this proposal was thrown out in this otherworldly realm, it meant that he was also in control of the other clans, and it seemed that he was not only an escort, but should be seen as a martial artist who also had a tactical vision. Granit's proposal is worthless to Benimaru. What will happen to Lord Rimuru, if not to my men? It's a shame, but that demon lord is too dangerous. In order to confirm your loyalty, it is necessary that you work together to crush him. Sure enough, Benimaru thought. To say it's a collaborative effort to defeat Rimuru is to expect us to kill each other. Of course, surviving this might result in being adopted as a companion, and Benimaru is no fool who would believe such a blank check. Most fundamentally, there was absolutely no reason for them to betray Rimuru. No, we can't talk. We can't betray Lord Rimuru. The reason why he was still listening to the other party was because Benimaru was trying to buy time. In fact, just now, he had heard the voice of some unknown person. That wistful and pleasant voice that rang out of nowhere brought a proposal to Benimaru. "Oh Benimaru, can I help you with the power you've been waiting for?" Hearing such a dubious request, one would never nod one's head in agreement if one were to do so normally, but Benimaru somehow agreed. Benimaru's race had evolved into a spiritual life form, the divine flame spirit, but he was not satisfied with that. Benimaru wished to refer to the past experience that Rimuru had lent to him with his ability, and then obtain it through his own efforts. That goal has been half achieved. After witnessing the battle between Rimuru and Vielgrind and the other companions fighting figures, Benimaru also had an enlightenment. Combining the power of fire, which he is good at, with his unique skill Generalissimo. Although the power of Rimuru's absolute severance cannot be reproduced, the Red Lotus has been rebuilt by Kurobi and has gained mythical strength. The skills developed during the exercise and the racial characteristics of the divine flame spirit, and the Generalissimo combined with these, are only one step away from reaching the peak of the ultimate. The mysterious voice was heard at this moment. Exactly what kind of changes would be brought about for themselves after the promise, and Benimaru wanted to witness that result. Because of this, he responds to Granit's conversation, but he regrets it again after hearing the other party persuade him to betray Rimuru. The mere hearing of such a proposal would be offensive. Benimaru drew his teishin and posed to face Granit as if he had heard enough. Hey, it's not good to be in a hurry. The so-called way of the monsters is to follow the strong and leave the weak, isn't it? Isn't it commonplace for monsters to choose their masters? Hearing Granit's words, Benimaru's brain felt like it was boiling with anger. As a general, he is well versed in calm thinking. I have no right to laugh at Shion like this. Although Benimaru was so self-deprecating, he had no intention of holding back his anger. Draw your sword. I have nothing more to say to you. Hearing Benimaru reply like that, Granit shook his head and muttered, Oops. I don't understand. That's mercy, my greatest concession. It is out of respect for your position that I have promised to let you become my men without pain. Granit seemed genuinely incredulous. There is no doubt about how strong you are. It was because of the belief that he was overwhelmingly superior to Benimaru that he said things like that. Understanding this, Benimaru's anger steepened. There is only one reason why they haven't shot yet. To make Granit regret his statement. You're just pushing and pulling to make excuses for failure, aren't you? Ha, what a joke. I appreciate your aura, but you might as well have some more self-awareness. My men were probably proud that all three were defeated. I have no face-to-face with your majesty now, but if you nod, our strength will increase instead of decrease. It's a good thing for me that you don't have to die in vain. Isn't that a great way to build a relationship? You should understand after hearing that. I have no intention of using you as abandoned sons. Perhaps noticing Benimaru's restlessness, Granit shamelessly blurted out. What was even more infuriating was being able to sense that he undoubtedly meant what he was saying. Granit exudes the dominance of being a hero, proving forcefully that he has no need to play that kind of gimmick. Since you are also a great general, think carefully. You think you can save your men, don't you? And well, to tell you the hard truth, Kondo and Daramda are really strong. Damrada and I were allies a long time ago, and his character is well known to me. I'm the better man, but he's also a strong man who won't be defeated in the face of the primordial. Also, there's Kondo, who is clearly a rookie, but he can match us as well. It was only because it was too dangerous that he had been brought under His Majesty's control, but even the primordial is no match for him. That is to say, in order to challenge Your Majesty Rudra, you must defeat the 4 absolute strongmen, including Lord Veilgrind and myself. You also understand that it's impossible, right? This guy is unexpectedly loose-lipped, thought Benimaru. A little bit of anger calmed down, intending to gather as much information as possible. Some of the other party's remarks were indeed unpleasant, but if forbearance for a moment could probe the Empire, then Benimaru wouldn't have any complaints. The Emperor's inclusion of Kondo in the domination was concerning, and it seemed that Emperor Rudra did hold some sort of domination system skill. It's unfortunate that you've been so vocal and unilaterally determined that we are the losers. Besides, even if we follow you, it's not nice to have our hearts dominated, is it? Ha ha ha, are you finally interested? That's for sure. I've heard that the Great Ogre clan is an excellent mercenary body, and also thought that you would decide whether or not to join us based on the conditions. On that note, feel free. As you feared, His Majesty does have the power over the people, but there's no point in worrying about that. Oh, not acceptable? It's normal, but it's hard to do. Consider it an honor to be dominated, but anyone who is not capable will be ignored. Besides, although Kondo was dominated, he himself was not aware of it. I'm the only one who knows the truth, and I can't help but feel a little sorry for him. I know. I can't talk about it, can't really talk. Granit's claim, too, is not incomprehensible. No one would be unfortunate if I was not self-conscious of being dominated, that's the way it is, so give me acceptance. No one could nod their head when they heard that. Is that so? It's true when I say you don't have to worry. You may not believe much of what I say, but to put it another way, I can assert that you and your companion will never be dominated. Why? Because you're too weak. What a joke. Benimaru's anger flared up again. Granit's tone was so natural that it was completely unreadable as a bluff. He had no insult in mind, just judged Benimaru and the others as weak, as a matter of course. Benimaru prided himself on his strength since his evolution, but he never expected to be underestimated to such an extent. All right, listen up. You belong to the strong among the adversaries, but when you become partners, you do not reach the value of being dominated. It seemed that not only Kondo, but Yuki the Brat was also dominated, and now His Majesty was dominating even Lord Veldora. I think there should be no more power left to dictate to you now, and as long as you take an oath of loyalty, you will certainly be given permission to act freely. Even if you all go together, you can't beat me. That's a lot of confidence, but I believe in my own strength too. I don't want to hear any more of your nonsense, so let's decide who's right and who's wrong. Benimaru picked up the sword that was on his shoulder and repositioned himself. He had thought that he might be able to obtain useful information, but now he realized that it would only be more unpleasant to talk about it any longer, and gave up the idea of continuing to pry. Granit sighed deeply, not too pleased. Monsters are incorrigible. It's sad that you still can't see reality when I've reached out to you. I have no choice but to give up on you, and then deal with the one who fought Minaza. Benimaru snorted. Stop that. Shion is more stubborn than I am. Hearing this, Granit's face showed a serious look for the first time. A joke? I shouldn't have made an introduction. Do you know who Minaza is? Isn't it natural to gather information on the battlefield? We must carry it out. That's what Lord Rimuru taught us. Well, interesting. It's a shame to kill a man like you. Granit had finally pulled out his sword, and although he was able to use a variety of weapons, the sword was still in his hands. The moment he raised his sword, Granit showed a sudden change of atmosphere, so far smooth and gentle without a trace, but instead released a domineering aura like a spirit reborn. The short hair on his head was upside down, as if he was in a rage. There is a saying in the stories of the otherworldly world, the swallow knows the will of the swan. It means that the little guy can't understand the big guy's thoughts. While I'm trying to reason with you, just do what I say. Do you want to lobby at this point? I'm almost tired of hearing about it. Ha! Then go to hell. The breaking army, shock and awe. Granit made the most powerful must kill with the first blow, and he was sure that with this blow he would be able to settle Benimaru. What Granit excels at is the analysis of the enemy. With the power of substitution, the enemy's ability to see through the enemy, borrowed from Rudra, it is possible to see the fighting ability of the opponent. Therefore, Granit had correctly grasped the strength of Benimaru and others, and because of this, he was sure that these people in his own camp could not possibly lose. Of course, the enemy is not omnipotent, and when the enemy awakens to the ultimate skill, it is impossible to know the power of the ultimate skill. But just by looking at the amount of mana the guy has, it's easy to tell what level of power the other person has. From this point of view, Benimaru and the others are not a threat. Benimaru, Sue, Shion, and the demons, it was clear to Granit that none of them had acquired ultimate skills. The primordials are difficult to deal with, and understand that it is not valid to deal with them if the demons come in and kill directly, but it is Benimaru who shows up in front of Granit. In Granit's opinion, Benimaru had the potential to awaken ultimate skills, but was no match for him. The amount of mana of Benimaru was indeed staggering, and even then it was less than half of Granit's, and in a sense, it was normal to make non-threatening judgments. And Granit didn't take it lightly or slack off. If the enemy has ultimate skills, depending on the situation, it is possible to get into a bitter fight. Once the combat time is extended, there is also the possibility of the enemy awakening to the ultimate skill due to perceived danger. But just talking for a while and suddenly increasing in strength, such a thing is not possible. So Granit is looking to settle for an overwhelming submission that doesn't give his opponent any chance to fight back. It was already clear that Benimaru didn't have a hidden skill like the flying dragon's transformation, so Benimaru's chances of winning would be 1 in 10,000. Because of this, Granit will undoubtedly win. It's so gentle, so pompous, but it's no big deal. What? Unexpected things happen. The energy contained in the broken army, kinetic shock was enough to crush Benimaru into pieces, but he was blocked by Benimaru's sword. This is an impossible sight. All of Granit's equipment was mythical grade, and Benimaru's Tezu, although considered excellent, should not reach the strength of the true mythical grade. No, before that. No way. Why have you acquired an ultimate skill? It's only natural that Granit would scream. The ultimate skills that have so far gone completely unseen cannot be acquired so suddenly. Facing a panicked Granit, Benimaru was very calm. What's incredible? A man is only who grows all the time. Benimaru looked tugged on the surface, but his heart was filled with cold sweat. The moment he received Granit's brute sword was the moment Benimaru gained his power, and Benimaru correctly grasped Granit's power in a split second. As long as the time deviates a little bit, it is estimated that Benimaru will suffer horrible damage. While he may not be able to die, he really cannot laugh out loud. That was close. I didn't expect this guy to hide his strength to such an extent, and I wasn't careless, but without it I might have lost. It was good to be with Granit after all that talk, thought Benimaru. Well, then, it's my turn. Benimaru collected himself and focused on the enemy in front of him. As far as results are concerned, it is good to live, and introspection is saved for later. The power just acquired was exactly the ideal form of his imagination, so Benimaru calmly and unstintingly displayed it. The ultimate skill, the Blazing Sun Lord Amaterasu. This is the terrifying power from Seal to analyze the power of Veilgrind and reveal it to the world. Benimaru's Taishin was wrapped in a black glow, the symbol of Benimaru's power, Amaterasu. There are two levels of meaning to what is called Amaterasu. Understood as a meteorological phenomenon, and by extension, as a physical, non-burning, non-freezing, non-stop invisible law, the other layer of meaning is even less so. It's the light of the sun, an extremely hot flame. With the two characteristics of Amaterasu, plus Benimaru's sword skill, it was hard for Benimaru to even imagine how much his power would rise. Granit lived up to the name of the god of war and chose to respond in a reasonable manner. After only a moment of surprise, he regained his composure and began to look for Benimaru's weakness. Probably due to the acquisition of the ultimate skill, the amount of mana of Benimaru was reduced by a lot, and even then it was not something that an ordinary demon lord could match, turning it into a third of the amount of Granit's mana. Unknown powers are a threat, but a full-strength shot can still win. Granit yelled. "Don't underestimate me, you little monster. The next blow is not going to be polite, I'm going to give it my all to beat you guys." In the former Imperial army, Granit's strength was second only to that of Veilgrind. In fact, he's so much stronger than Damrata that even with Kondo as his opponent, it's estimated that he'll be a tie. This is still true today. Simply because there's no chance of moving the real thing, Rudra's guard isn't made for anyone. Granit puts on the full force, looking to take Benimaru down for good. Die, Army of the Damned, shock and awe. Although it was the same move as before, the difference in power was huge. A fierce hegemony burst out, thunder and lightning in the atmosphere. But these attacks only went through Benimaru. No matter what kind of attack it was, it would not be able to capture Amaterasu. At this moment, a roaring sound was heard. Not in this space, but in some other realm where something is happening. Carrera, this guy, he's really pushing. Benimaru's mind played out in great detail what Carrera had done. Of course, it was not through the observation of Moss that he gained the ultimate skill of the King of Blazing Sun, but the vision of his men, who were connected to the soul corridor of Raimaru, became visible to Benimaru as well. As a result, Benimaru also mastered Carrera's moves. "Let's show you my collection, even though I just saw it, but let's do it." "What?" Granit failed to respond. He had already turned to burning dust from Benimaru's counter moves. That being said, the scary thing is Benimaru. The King of Blazing Sun, Amaterasu, who has been analyzing the power of Veilgrind, has the power to accelerate himself with the power of light and heat control. Although the moves used by Benimaru were not as fast as the Scorched Dragon's accelerated speed, he had also become capable of using the sword flash with divine speed. The invincible, powerful and fast. It's called prominence acceleration. "Well, I guess I can't hear you either." Benimaru dropped the words and turned around with a look of relief. Granit is actually very strong. He is also calculating, careful and in good shape. Even so, it was lost, summed up in one phrase, bad luck. To say that there is one thing that must be reflected upon, is the failure to do so when one can defeat the enemy. Granit died from talking too much. Not being able to repeat the mistake himself, Benimaru carved the thought into his heart. Veilgrind was anxious. This is because her own other body was eaten by Raimaru. The dreaded demon Lord Raimaru. Unable to communicate with the eaten other body, the thoughts transmitted here are swallowed into the abyss without any response. Even injecting energy is like throwing yourself into a bottomless swamp. Understanding that these actions made no sense, Veilgrind bit her lower lip lightly. About half of the energy just disappeared, and there was no sign of it going back. Confident and invincible, parallel existence had been defeated, and it was now difficult to remain calm any longer. The Veilgrind now had only 20% of the amount of mana compared to when she was in her full state. You can judge that you can't win against Rimuru, and you must make a decision to escape from here. Rudra, he must not be put in danger. Veilgrind thought about it and decided to give up the guard on the door. Perhaps it was lucky that no one had attacked yet and she could walk outside without hesitation. If someone comes to stop her, then by all means settle it. Unexpectedly, several silhouettes were found in the area surrounded by the 8 doors. Geez, what's with all the panic? Have you forgotten something, Lord Veilgrind? The one who asked the question was Testarossa, who was enjoying her tea as if she was the dominant one. Primordial white. Veilgrind glared at the grinning Testarossa with a disgruntled face, and it was precisely because she was in a hurry that she became enraged by the appearance of this difficult opponent. Testarossa smiled elegantly, in stark contrast to Veilgrind. I told you not to call me that, right? Or, is this a provocation? The skin doesn't smile. In the face of the overwhelmingly dominant Veilgrind, Testarossa remains unrelenting in her stance. You still want to fight me after all the pain you've been through? Well, yeah. I don't need to win, just buy time from you. Testarossa stood up as she answered, Veilgrind's fist looming just in time. The tables and chairs were shattered from the shockwave, and Esprit and Zonda had long since taken refuge in order not to get caught up in it. Testarossa moved with ease. With the heat that would have burned into charcoal on mere contact, and the inability to see the speed, there was no need to force a pickup of Veilgrind's onslaught. Let's not talk about skills for a moment. There was a tenfold difference in the amount of mana between the two, and even though Veilgrind only had about 20% mana left, there was still a big difference. Testarossa remained calm and collected. It's hard to win because there's no means of being able to beat Veilgrind. But if it's just about buying time, there's not a problem at all with Testarossa's strength. That's why I hate you people. Gee, what a shame. I have the deepest respect for you, Veldora's sister. Pretentious. Then don't make a scene, back off from there. Please forgive me for refusing this request, don't look at me like this, I still hate to lose, so, please let me have my revenge now. This is, from the heart of Testarossa. Although it was impossible to win a real fight with Veilgrind, there was still no problem in disrupting Veilgrind's mind. Even if it didn't wait to rendezvous with the rest of the subordinates, it would be a little while before Rimuru would arrive. By then, it would be certain that it was a victory for Testarossa. Ah, what a wonderful victory for Lord Rimuru, to have the overwhelming Lord Veilgrind playing around like a child. I can't lose either. With all the means that Veilgrind possessed, Rimuru had already forced her to exert them to the fullest, so Testarossa would definitely not let this opportunity go. Red and white crossed. One side fierce, one side graceful. The red and white intertwined with each other at an alarming rate, and the two did not touch once and faced each other again. Yes, even I'm surprised. I tried to gain the ultimate skill, that's probably why. Testarossa replied with ease, as if none of this mattered. In fact, Testarossa used the waiting time to pray for new powers. As a result, success has been achieved in making the form of one's own heart figurative. At the time, it felt as if an incredible voice had been heard, but Testarossa decisively decided that it was an illusion. Relying on instinct to choose the right answer is what makes a demon Testarossa. The power that makes people care is called the ultimate skill Hell King Belial. Like Rumina's king of lust, she is in charge of life and death, but with a greater preference for the death side, which no doubt reflects the nature of Testarossa. For her, defeat was an absolutely unrecognizable humiliation, let alone death. One of the conditions for the evolution of demons is the accumulation of power up to an upper limit and over 2,000 years. It means not to allow a single failure, and by failure here, it means perdition. The phenomenon of the flesh disappearing back into hell is called failure. Strictly speaking, a tie is not counted as a failure. However, running away is another matter. A spiritual being is a being that is swayed by its own heart, and when it admits that it can't beat the other person and stops challenging it, it's a failure. In this world, there were strange demons like Diablo who remained undefeated in the truest sense of the word, and as far as Testarossa knew, such people could be counted on just one hand. As long as the heart doesn't give in, that's fine. Thus, Testarossa never stopped challenging Zijin, and as long as the challenge didn't stop before the win, it wasn't a defeat. It's the same this time. As long as there was no escape from Veilgrind, one day there would be victory. Testarossa had always believed so. Acquired an ultimate skill. Yes, Diablo's show-offs were tiresome as a reason, and the previous battle had made myself deeply aware that lack of strength was the main reason. Since skills are a reflection of the mind, they are not necessary for me and others. It's always been that way in the past, but it seems to be ill-considered. Maybe it's because you can face your desires and feel your power being used in a more sensitive way. Just because Veilgrind also possessed the ultimate skill King of Charity, she was able to understand the meaning of Testarossa's words, and therefore realized more clearly that retreating from here was becoming difficult. What an abomination! Veilgrind's uncontrollable grumbling made Testarossa laugh. Where's the best compliment? Just as Veilgrind was about to burst into a rage over this response, a massive explosion large enough to distort space occurred. Thus regaining his senses, Veilgrind looked back in surprise. A door that was beautifully knocked off its feet. Appearing there, was the blonde demon Carrera. By the way, some of Leon's notoriety was caused by what Carrera had done, but those things had little to do with the current side of the fight. Yeah, looks like it's caught up. I hate losing too, let me in too. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo, no way. Oh, Carrera, I don't mean to be hard on you, but aren't you covered in bruises? That Kondo guy is too strong, but I'm satisfied, I'll give it to you today. The smiling Carrera staggered as she walked, and Esprit rushed to support her body, and Zonda immediately and thoughtfully prepared a chair to guide Carrera over there. Ajira followed out, but he was left alone. Since Carrera has chosen to be patient, we're not going to be capricious, and we're a little tired, so let's just take a tour today. Not knowing when Ultima had taken a seat next to Carrera, it turned out that it was Veyron who had prepared the chair with care long ago. The demons assembled in succession. Of course, that's not all. Shion, Sue, and Benimaru all emerged from their respective doors. Seeing these faces, Veilgrind's face couldn't help but twitch, because it made her realize that the strong men of her own camp had all been defeated. Testarossa's tactical victory. The aspirations of Rudra and Veilgrind were about to fall through. Moving the perspective from the sky to the earth. On the battlefield, the heat of the battle was cooling. Among other things, Laplace with Vega is in action with Cagali as his target. Taboo spell, the undead spell seems long over. More accurately, because of the loss of Veilgrind's assistance, Cagali lost control. It wasn't clear how many undead elves had been born, but it should be some time before they started to move. Depending on the consciousness of the undead elves that were boarding, it was possible to birth naturally powerful warriors, so it was necessary to restrain their movements earlier than anyone else. Laplace would think so, and surely others would come to the same conclusion. Lieutenant Kondo, who guided the ceremony, could not have been unaware of these things. Geez, I'm getting a head start. By the time Laplace reached his destination, Imperial soldiers were transporting them into military vehicles. Oh, you're Laplace. I hear you're pretty strong, so a fight is inevitable. The man who spoke to Laplace was a civilized man in a different color uniform. Lieutenant Kondo's white gown was very conspicuous, but the man's bright red uniform also showed an unusual air. However, he does not look very strong. With a face that looks like it was made to look like a doll, it's an incredible person with a gender that looks like a man and a woman. The supposedly mediocre appearance would probably not have made an impression had it not been for the bright military uniform. No, perhaps it was precisely because the uniform was too bright that the impression of this man could not be made. Laplace watches while he responds cautiously. Yes, my name is Laplace. If you give that man back to our family, there's no need to fight. Oh, well, that can't be done. Look, there's still a fight going on over there. I can't run away on my own. This man seems to be going to a fight. No way, Laplace was ready for battle. Then there's nothing you can do. Who are you? Just ask. If you can answer, you earn it. Me? Also, not knowing is taken for granted. I am the 10th in the sequence, and I am the one who supports the history of the Empire, Feldway. Feldway, resident in the Imperial Army, served as a reserve in case of vacancies in the single digits. Laplace had also heard such rumors, but it was the first time he had seen them in person. Yes? You're the man who's called a backup. Not a man, but not a woman either. What a mess. Laplace peered in on his opponent while conversing, who was neither arrogant nor natural, posing as a combatant, nor trying to run away. He's a bit elusive. Vega was anxious. Give it to me, and I'll kill this guy. Laplace hastened to stop Vega, who was trying to come forward. Wait a minute, I told you not to do anything rash. Chairman, they are basically hostages, so don't take them lightly. Both Footman and Tyr are alive and well, and are now fighting a large number of enemies. If they were called, it would really be impossible to predict where the battle was headed. Laplace cautiously tries his opponent's attitude, but is hampered by the appearance of an unexpected character. Vega, come help me. Laplace is the betrayer, settle him here. What the? Feeling a strong killing intent, Laplace chose to retreat, and the voice that came through was from the trusty boss, Yuki Kagurazuka. What was spoken, however, was not what Laplace had expected. Boss, get back to normal. To be manipulated by someone else, that's not your style at all. Even the domination of Mariabel couldn't affect Yuki. With such spiritual power, he should be able to resist any spiritual domination. However, Laplace's words did not work. Yuki charged at Laplace without any confusion. Seeing this, the bewildered Vega gave a twisted smile of pleasure. Yeah, boss. Can I eat this guy after we get rid of him? Ah, yes. I'd love to see you get stronger. That's the boss, I see what you mean. Following the strong, Vega is such a person. Lacking in ethical outlook and morality, living on instinct more than wild animals. Thus not feeling in the slightest that his treachery was sinful, high spirits began to strike out at Laplace. Yuki and Vega can be dealt with by just one opponent, but even Laplace can't be dealt with by two opponents at the same time. Geez, this isn't good. Don't talk about saving the chairman, our family will probably be killed. There is no choice but to get out of here first. Laplace's idea is strategically correct. However, it didn't work out. There's no use trying to escape. Is your name Laplace? You sir are both cunning and cautious, and it's no good letting you get away, so let you die here. As the saying goes, Laplace's transfer failed. Feldway, who had been watching from afar, had space domination over this area of the battlefield. Damn it. The hard kicks from Yuki, and the scattered energy that Vega was releasing in tandem with the unleashed, were a good thing in the sense of a fight, even though Vega's head was full of muscle. The escape route is blocked and the chances of winning are slim. No, as long as Yuki is here, there's no chance of winning. No. Is this the end of our family? Even so, Laplace wasn't about to give up and decided to bet on the slightest possibility of Yuki unlocking his spiritual domination and exerting the strength he had been hiding. Go to hell. You idiot. It's you who's dead. Using Yuki's attack, Vega is able to kick at the approaching Vega, who is unable to stand up for the moment. Hey, you're good at this. Not bad, not as good as the boss, but we're strong, too, right? I know. So at least, I'll kill you myself. What? With a small sense of defiance, Laplace, noticing this, scrambled to gaze up at Yuki's face. Sure enough, it's a face he's used to seeing. Carelessly, Laplace, who couldn't help but fall into thought, reacted somewhat delayed in the face of Yuki's fist. Oops, screaming inside. And yet, there was no pain coming through. Because in front of Laplace's eyes, Yuki's fist was blocked by a certain figure. Kufa-fu-fa-fu. It's all your fault if you're blamed by Lord Rimuru. It's Diablo. What do you mean ? Laplace couldn't help but want to spit, but kept his weight up because this wasn't the time for that. Diablo-kun, are you here to save me? Huh? Why would I? Yeah. Are you Laplace? I'm here to save you. So, when you report to Rimuru-sama, remember to emphasize to him that I saved your life. As soon as he reversed his earlier look of disgust, Diablo revealed a bright smile and said so. We haven't even seen such a suspicious smile in our family once. It's remarkable that Diablo could be identified in this way by the admittedly suspicious Laplace, and of course, there's nothing flattering about it. Yes, I know. I've been very well cared for by Mr. Diablo, and I'll convey it to Lord Rimuru. Good. So, give it a try. In fact, Diablo had just been told by Rimuru, what are you staying here for? Such a rebuke. With everyone fighting, it was only natural that he would be reprimanded when he was alone in visiting Rimuru's battle. Although Diablo is responsible for escorting Rimuru, he is unable to say anything to Rimuru, who has forgotten all about what he ordered. The sight of Rimuru alone, capable of commanding the whims of Diablo, is another moment of proof of this fact. Taken together, Diablo ran out because he had been given orders to work, and afterwards, hearing Moss report, rushed here. Not to help Laplace, but rather just to get rid of the suspicious elements. Kufafu, you're lucky to be selling favors here. In that case, Lord Rimuru's opinion of me will be restored, I suppose. So much so that Diablo is already thinking about what comes after the win. Then I'll leave Yuki over there alone because of the alliance, huh? What? Isn't this the Phantom King? I know you've been coveting this world, so it turns out that's what's going on, joining forces with Rudra, right? Ahead of Diablo's line of sight was the expressive, shallowly smiling Feldway. Diablo's appearance caused his smile to fade, revealing an evil ghost-like expression as he looked at Diablo. Is that so? Are you the original Black? According to Kondo's investigation, it's true that the Black Primordial has become one of Demon Lord Rimuru's men. I am now, with the name Diablo. I have nothing to do with your plans, and if you try to interfere with Lord Rimuru, do not blame me for not showing mercy. If you choose to be hostile, I advise you to be aware of it first. How kind of you to say that. It's not you taboo demons, who keep getting in my way. Feldway stared at Diablo with fierce hatred, and this killing intent alone showed an aura that would kill an ordinary person. But Diablo was unfazed, and said with a face as if provoking Feldway. Forget it. Even if I fight you here, my chances of winning are 0. Don't worry, I don't think it's possible to win. After the two men briefly glared at each other, Feldway opened his mouth first. I will stand down for the day, and if you interfere with me next time, you will have to be aware, Diablo. For the sake of remembering my name, I'll leave you alone. That said, I will prepare the means to kill you, so please keep that in mind. After a few words, the two stared at each other again, and then acted as if they were done, each ignoring the other's presence. Feldway gave the order to Kagali and Yuki. I fear something may happen to His Majesty Rudra, and I must return to the flagship and make preparations. At his words, Yuki, who had been spying on the situation, lifted the fighting stance, and Vega, dragging his shaky body, stood up, following Yuki back toward Kagali in their direction. Footman and Tyr were called back, relying on Feldway's space domination, and shifted away, including the entirety of the undead elf clan. Diablo remained here and made contact with Moss. Now that it is known that there is a demon king among the enemies, the only one who can fight against it at the moment, according to Diablo's judgment, is himself, though reluctantly, acting again for the good. After the retreat of Footman and Tyr, the battlefield battle came to an end, and reasonable instructions were given for the treatment of the wounded after confirming that all the men had survived. Moss was very good and connected with Benimaru as well. Thinking that the work here had come to an end, Diablo himself arrived at the flagship by transfer after they had disappeared from Feldway. Laplace is the only one left. What, leaving our family alone again? Laplace muttered, slumping his shoulders listlessly. Epilogue. Sister and brother. After eating veal grind, I calmed down. Now that there was room to focus on the surroundings, he made his rounds of the battlefield. The forest was badly damaged, but the capital city of Rimuru appeared to be safe and sound, and the area around the city had been somewhat damaged, though most of it seemed to be guarded by the Geldites. I'm relieved for the time being. So, what are you doing here? Isn't this fine, Lord Rimuru? In fact, I was trying to keep someone from getting in the way of Lord Rimuru. During the fight with Veelgrind, I sensed that there was someone watching the whole fight all the time, and to be honest the situation was quite annoying, but I didn't have any spare energy to pay attention to such things at the time. And then it's on to the present. Of course I'm not. Come on, everyone else is working hard. You go to work too? I do. After glancing at me with a sad look, Diablo left. This guy alone, I really can't figure out what he's thinking. In order that no one may come to obstruct the master, he planned stay here as an escort, watching the battle with such a plan, honestly, not at all. Seal seemed to find Diablo annoying as well. Pungent tones that wouldn't normally be used came out. All in all, it's time to quiet down and deal with Veelgrind. Although the work of persuasion and illustration has been handed over to Veldora. I tried to inquire and found that Veldora had put all the blame on me. Oi, how come all the problem children are on my side? It's making people madder and madder. This guy seems to be trying to portray me as evil so he can deflect Veelgrind's anger. Anyway, I wanted to tell my sister that I was safe, but I couldn't get permission from Rimuru. Now that you're in the same situation, can you understand what I mean by that? That's how Veldora's words feel. It's like he's a bad child who puts all the blame on his friends for fear of being reprimanded. The task of convincing Veelgrind was a failure. But, indeed, it would be very embarrassing for my sister to appear out of nowhere in the mistaken belief that she had died. Understanding is understanding, but what the hell is it to blame me for all this? Isn't this just a simple way of putting all your troubles on me? He was supposed to help mediate, but now it feels like the anger directed at me has intensified. It's not working at all. I can't leave this to Veldora anymore. It was necessary to explain well to her that Veelgrind and Veldora were now in the same situation. Before that, there's something to report. What is it? The parsing of Veelgrind identifies that she appears to be under the domination of someone, most likely Rudra's power. What do you think? Hey, that's a hell of a statement. I'm a little troubled by how you're going to respond when you report it to me so calmly. I had thought that the seal would analyze Veelgrind, and I wasn't too surprised about that, but Veelgrind was being dominated, and I couldn't keep quiet about it. By the way, is the prisoner sure it's Rudra? Basically certain. In addition, while watching the battle between Carrera and Tatsuya Kondo through the Soul Corridor, it appears that Kondo is also dominated by Rudra. Presumably, they are in the same state. After inquiring about the situation in detail, Granit, who was Benimaru's opponent, said everything as if he was a bamboo tube pouring out beans. It's a silly feeling for him to be the enemy. This guy's behavior must be taken as a counterexample and thoroughly memorized by all. However, these are topics to be discussed when you return safely. The immediate question is what exactly to do with Veelgrind. It was obviously impossible to rely on Veldora, so it was up to me to explain, but because of the influence of Veldora's spiritual domination, Veelgrind would probably not listen to my explanation at all. Well, what can be done about this? How about putting Veelgrind in the same position as Veldora, since it is rare to absorb it? Huh? That is to say, like Veldora, a soul corridor can be created between me and Veelgrind, making her my ultimate skill. Can it be done? There is no question that the current Lord Rimuru is equal to or even above the dragon race, and that the amount of mana is abundant. It's entirely possible to absorb Veilgrind. But to do so would not take away Veilgrind's free will, or would it? Like Veldora, I couldn't force him to do anything, and even when I asked him to do something, it was only implemented after he agreed. Veldora is more than enough to do as he pleases. And now, I've sold out without hesitation to save myself. Although I would have sentenced him to confiscation of snacks at such a time, but when I think about it, I was really tormented by him. Assuming that Veldora actually does something against me, I can't undo his liberated state either, though I can stop providing energy, but I can't make Veldora disappear. Besides, the true dragon race is so large that it is not an easy existence to disappear. Unless Veldora himself accepts the return, he will always be free to move about. That is, I don't have any coercive power over Veldora. Basically I can't force him to do anything as long as I liberate him. Thinking about it, I realized that Veilgrind was only going to turn out to be in the same situation. Putting Veilgrind in the same position as Veldora and then liberating her was the quickest way to prove my innocence. Then they will not continue to be misunderstood and suffer. Sibling quarrel? Don't know. This kind of thing is not under my supervision. Anyway, that's it, so hurry up and get Veilgrind in the same state as Veldora. If you feel uneasy, should you add restraints to Veilgrind? Combined with the constraints, can even such a thing be done? Adding the condition that Veilgrind can't resist me is probably still necessary considering what's to come. But that approach goes against my principles. If Veilgrind just couldn't take it, I might as well continue to isolate her in infinite space. Put a mandatory condition on her, and I'd be on the same page as Rudra. Even if she doesn't want to assist me, it doesn't matter. As long as she vowed to stay out of the way, she had no problem going anywhere she wanted to live her life. Understood? I think it's only fitting for Lord Rimuru. The direction has been decided. Then let the execution begin. Start by saying hello. Ah, Miss Veilgrind, are you all right? You're Rimuru, T. You gotta be kidding me. Get me out of here now. I turned my consciousness to the infinite space, and Veilgrind was in the thick of it. The scene feels like it looks like a suspicious slime is coercing the beautiful woman. Just what you would call a criminal. That slime is me, in human form and back again. The atmosphere is rather eerie, but it can't be helped. Everything was done to prove my innocence. By imagination, I covered Veilgrind with my hands. And then ate Rudra's power and unlocked it, and then created a soul corridor with Veilgrind. The door is a two-way thing, and it's set up in such a way that Veilgrind doesn't open up, and I can't communicate with her. But I can still hitch a ride unilaterally, hoping that doing so won't be pointless. The above homework was done without any problems. The rambunctious Veilgrind came down honestly, and the change was a little surprising to me so suddenly. Ah, Rimuru? You couldn't have done something unruly to sister, could you? You idiot. How could I do something like that? After all, if you could convince her properly, I wouldn't have to work so hard. It was like the two of us were going to fight. Shut up, all of you. Ah, yes, sorry. There was a sudden loud cry that made both Veldora and I lower our heads at the same time. Honestly, it's scary. No wonder Veldora found her difficult to deal with. What the hell's going on, Rimuru? Even if you ask me what's going on. What the hell is being said is completely unintelligible. I can hear the other body voice over there, but my voice doesn't go there. What the hell have you done? My heart couldn't help but skip a beat as I was glued to the face by the super gorgeous beauty. Her breath came to her face and it felt ticklish. It smells so good. I was supposed to not need to breathe, but Veilgrind's scent was very sweet. Now is not the time to care about those things. The answer to Veilgrind's query should be due to her liberation from Rudra's domination. You seem a little upset? It's an illusion. Yes, is that so? Never mind, It's better not to delve into this and listen to Seal's instructions first. It's actually quite simple to say. The Veilgrind before me is no longer under the spiritual domination of Rudra, but the other body is still under the domination of Rudra. In order to prevent the leak of information, I used the infinite prison to block it off. Our intelligence is not leaked and can be obtained unilaterally from the opposite side. In this way, Veilgrind over there was driven to desperation, and combined with Rudra's domination, she became completely unable to read my mind. It's a one-way street. I know Seal has done something awesome, but I wouldn't be surprised anymore. That is to say, analyzing this difference in consciousness will prove whether you are being dominated or not. Well, that's Rimuru for you. Sister, here's what I believe about Rimuru. You shut up. Yes. It was a secret that Veldora, who had interjected, was being disciplined again, and I felt a little happy to see him being disciplined. After scolding Veldora, Veilgrind seemed to have fallen into a deep contemplation, probably looking for any difference between himself and the other body over there. As I said, I also grasped the situation on the Emperor's flagship through the eyes of my companions. The battle has entered a final situation. A state of affairs that would dispel Veilgrind's doubts happened just at the moment. Veilgrind was surrounded by my companions. The scene seems a bit despicable, but that's a sentiment that only the uninformed can feel. In fact, even if Veilgrind was in this weakened state that she was in now, it would be difficult for everyone to mount a challenge together to overcome her. Putting that aside for a moment, the alien space that Veilgrind had created had fallen apart and looked like it was going to collapse soon. Just as I was thinking that, the space was really easily destroyed by the arrival of Diablo. The primordial black. It's Diablo. That guy, if I don't see him, I'll become very powerful. Koofa-foo-fa-foo. That guy will give me his snacks, and I like him. You're being bought off. Even if Veldora complimented Diablo, I still only half believed his words. The side thought about these haves and have-nots and continued to follow the developments, and just then Veilgrind over there took a step forward to guard Rudra. The situation had all come to this, yet Rudra remained leisurely in his chair. Was it guts, or rather, confidence? Seeing Rudra like this, one man made the first move. It's Carrera. Without hesitation, Carrera fired at Rudra with the golden pistol in her hand. And the bullets she shot. Wasn't that the move that weakened me? Kondo can only shoot one bullet a day, why can yellow primordial? Seal has already told me, so I know the details. Not the primordial yellow, but Carrera. It looks like Kondo entrusted her with Rudra's affairs after his defeat. Hearing this clarification, Veilgrind muttered, I didn't expect even Kondo. Unrelated to Veilgrind's confusion, the situation has changed again. Rudra. Over there, Veilgrind cried out, spreading her arms to shield Rudra from her. I can't believe I can catch up with the Godspeed bullets and make moves. I'm sure you have the physical ability of a monster. However, the power of the divine extermination bomb was not simple either. Not only did it strike Veilgrind's entire right arm, but it also struck Rudra without decreasing in power. However, surprisingly, Rudra was unharmed. The Emperor's expression was always at ease, giving the impression that he knew from the beginning that Carrera's attacks were ineffective against him. What's that? Why could the Emperor invalidate that attack? Not clear. It's hard to believe that you can see something like the barrier, but it's hard to believe that it can be completely invalidated by that alone. Veldora and I were both shocked by the light. As if Veilgrind couldn't believe it either, she muttered a why and collapsed to the ground, having to support herself on both hands. What's wrong, sister? Veilgrind whispered in reply to the panicked Veldora. Your friend is right. I really was dominated by Rudra. Presumably finally figuring it out, Veilgrind told us about Rudra. Rudra was safe because of the iron-walled protection he possessed. That protection is absolute and impossible for anyone to break, no matter what. But there are conditions. The loyalty of the vassals or ministers to the emperor is a source of energy for protection, and cannot be unleashed without someone loyal to the emperor. Then, there are drawbacks. This shield, although it can be activated normally, one cannot do anything else when activated. This power is the power of the Justice King Michael, the castle guard, which is the pride of the King of Justice, the ultimate skill. Even Carrera's divine extermination bomb, it can defend against it, and it's not too much to say that it's nearly invincible. Although the attack could not be carried out when launched, it was just a matter of handing it over to the minions. Since you have that power, you don't have to come out and shelter him, do you? Well, I feel the same way. Veilgrind answered that query. Right. I should have known better than to pretend to be sheltered and then wait for an opportunity to attack, but she acted like that, which is to say, forcing herself to shelter Rudra. This incident made Veilgrind finally understand that she had actually been thought-induced by Rudra as well. Rudra, on the other hand, maintains the absolute realm of the castle guard without any movement. That's how it's supposed to be. What? Veilgrind let out another yelp of consternation. Even Veldora and I were speechless. Veilgrind rushes to Rudra's side even though she has lost her right arm, but is pierced through the chest by Rudra, who instantly lifts the castle guard. It's almost as if Veilgrind was deliberately. So, it is so, that man, the Rudra I loved, is gone. Tears welled up in Veilgrind's eyes. As if to justify what Veilgrind had lamented, Rudra snorted loudly. Ha 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 ha. Oh Veilgrind, feel honored to be of use to me. Your power will be used effectively. Hearing Rudra say so, Veilgrind over there crouched down in pain. That's Yuki's death-grabbing palm. Rudra, no. The King of Justice has the power to freely use the power of the creatures at his disposal. What's that? Too foul. Veilgrind's instructions made Veldora and I look at each other face to face. When Rudra is against us, it's up to you. Don't say anything stupid. I'm the strongest on this matter, though it's indisputable, but it's a troublesome opponent, so forgive me for refusing. I'll make a sundae for you. That's really charming. Veilgrind looked breathlessly at us who were pushing each other off. It seemed that because of this, she had stopped crying. Needless to say, this is certainly a good thing. So, regarding the Rudra who had just seized the power of Veilgrind. Rudra is the King of Justice. What does that mean? Although I had an idea in my mind, I wanted to hear about it from Veilgrind, so I asked. Rudra was already at the end of his rope, and his soul was consumed by repeated reincarnations, so it seems that he has been replaced by the King of Justice, since he is neither Rudra nor Rudra, sitting there. Veilgrind replied, sounding lonely. No, 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 a skill born of the Master's desire cannot be dangerous to the Master himself. No, it's not. Rudra's King of Justice was given to him by Veldenava. Rudra, by his own will, is the King of Covenant, and while our brother Veldenava remains unresurrected, the whereabouts of this ultimate skill is unknown. The King of Covenant is here with me though? It's not the atmosphere to say this, so I'll just keep quiet. Veilgrind's instructions continued, and her words summed up that Rudra had become unable to control the King of Justice due to the weakening of the soul's power due to repeated reincarnations. Hearing that, rather than the skill betraying the host, I felt there was another way to interpret it. Indeed. If I'm in the same position as the King of Justice, even if I'm temporarily dominated by the host, I'll definitely aim to resurrect my true master, Lord Rimuru. That's how it feels. Becoming Seal, the Theosophy core, no matter how unlikely it was, would definitely be a challenge, and definitely not one to give up halfway through, so, it's not like I can't understand the idea of the King of Justice. However, this does not mean that this can't be left unattended. I'm afraid the King of Justice has evolved into a free-willed Theosophy core, so his purpose should be completely different from Rudra's. The Theosophy core? What the hell is that? Say, wait a minute. Rimuru, do you know what the purpose of the King of Justice is? Since you want to know, I'll answer you. Isn't it the resurrection of Veldinava? I think, as long as it's for this, he'll do whatever it takes. That's why it can't be left alone, I said so. Veelgrin's face turned green. Just then, a new figure emerged and launched an attack towards Veelgrind, who was confronting Rudra. It was the Phantom King Feldway, and Diablo, feeling unable to defeat him, let him go, and it appeared that he had left his companion behind and returned. Even Diablo couldn't defeat him, that should be quite a powerful man. Still, it always felt like Diablo was just being lazy, or was it just me? Never mind, Feldway was no less powerful and used the space domination attack against Veelgrind, which even an awakened demon lord would have difficulty resisting. Wounded and weakened, Veelgrind seemed to have no strength left that could resist this move. Ha 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 ha. Veelgrind is about to disappear from this world due to a time warp. It's a lucky start, Rudra, no, Lord Michael. Feldway changed his name from Rudra to Michael. It's like it's trying to justify Veelgrind's speculation. It happened suddenly, but both Benimaru and Diablo reacted immediately and wanted to start acting, and I stopped them in a panic with thought communication. There's a reason why Phantom King Feldway's strength goes deep underground, but more importantly I wanted to see how Rudra, known as Michael, would react. What's more, I see it. Some incredible substance flew out of Rudra's body, and those things wrapped around Veelgrind as if to guard her. Immediately after, all those incredible substances that had flown out of Rudra's body disappeared. This reaction, exactly, is. It doesn't feel bad. Veelgrind's power had become the stuff of me, and Rudra was gone. Next, by absorbing the power of Veldora and Velzado, we will be able to fulfill the wish of the one who resurrected the Lord. Rudra took very much for granted the fact of being called Michael. That's for sure. My enemy is not Rudra, but Michael. And the goal of the other side is to bring the star dragon, Veldinava, back to life. This is a good thing, Lord Michael. There's always a way for Velzado. It's Veldora who's in trouble. The conversation continues, completely leaving Benimaru the others out of it. However, this is par for the course. I did not stop the attacks of the Shion and Testarossa, but those attacks were all completely blocked by the castle guard. Of course, Feldway was also guarded, unharmed. It's really tricky. But there are more important things now. Rudra, that's Rudra, right? The shards, the pieces of the soul are still there. I thought I was the only one who could see it, but it seemed that Veelgrind sensed it too. Not sure if Veelgrind saw it or felt it. All in all, she seemed to want to go after the remnants of Rudra. Calm down. You shut up. If we don't get over there soon, aren't the pieces going to disappear? Veelgrind had completely turned into a messed up child, with an angry but crying face and yelling at me. I activated thinking acceleration to extend the time. Then, created a world where only the duo of Veelgrind and I exist. I told you to calm down. If you get out now, you'll just be dominated by Rudra again. But where the debris flies can actually be grasped. However, there is no way out of it. In the end, there is no guarantee that he will ever return to this world, and it is even more of a dream to save Rudra. If you go straight out, there's no future. Shut up. So, what do I do? Just give up on Rudra? I can't do it. These are the heartfelt words of Veelgrind. The warning just now had been spoken by Seal, but Veelgrind's agitation was no longer perceptible to such things. The possibility is still there. What the? If you will accept my power to change. Sweet seduction. It was no longer even necessary to listen to Veelgrind's direct answer. I accept, as long as I get my wish. Even I thought Veelgrind would surely answer that. The moment Veelgrind agreed, the voice rang out. The will of Veelgrind has been affirmed. The first step is to cut off interference with the King of Charity. Hearing this, Veilgrind's emotions calmed down. After examining her own body with precision and guided by the voice, she did find the presence of that. There are traces of some kind of interference engraved in the King of Charity deep in the core of one's heart. Although the interference is now veiled, it is undoubtedly dangerous to continue to keep the thing. And here's why. Veilgrind grasped that. At the same time, she remembered. The ultimate skill, the King of Charity, has a power that is paired with the power of the King. In a distant memory she seems to have heard it. Among the powers created by Veldenava, the more pure in effect is called the Angelic Skill Series, and none of these skills can resist the absolute domination of the King of Justice. That power is the dominion of the Archangel. Veilgrind's King of Charity is no exception, and the King of Charity and King of Justice are linked together in extremely subtle corridors that cannot escape the influence of this power. Yeah, why did I forget about that? Holders of the angelic system's ultimate skills are unable to resist their elder brother. He hated it more than anyone else, so he traded the King of Charity for the King of Covenant in Rudra. It also makes sense why one would be dominated. Since it is the mechanism constructed by the elder brother, Veldenava, it is basically impossible to resist. Indeed, I have no future yet. Rimuru was right, and it made Veilgrind want to cry again. Right now. In the moment that Veilgrind wanted to give up, she heard an incredible voice. The pre-processing of the King of Charity is complete, uniting it with the King of Covenant, which is no longer needed. Huh? Veilgrind almost cried out. It was only natural that she would react this way, for the King of Covenant that Rudra had been looking for to be found in such a place. That said, Veilgrind was only now realizing it. The sound just heard was not from Rimuru. It is not a hallucination, but a voice that is clear and strong-willed, sounding like the voice of the world, but softer and more refined, and even more tender. While there are many things to ask, what is most important right now is the meaning of the phrase to be expressed. Wait, wait, wait. To give me the King of Covenant? Also, what does unification mean? If the ability remains as it is, it will be ruled by the King of Justice. In that case, just change the ability. I found a domination loop in the King of Covenant, so I used it to create new abilities for you while discarding it. It's overblown. It's really an answer that people everywhere want to spit take on. However, what Veilgrind cared about now was only one problem. Do that, and I'll go to Rudra. It is possible, it is certain. Since it's possible, there's no need to be confused. Veilgrind promised to come down with hope in her heart. No, actually, it's been promised. Veilgrind, the will to you has long since been confirmed and no second commitment is required. Now, the ability to change. The voice, Seal, had no intention of withdrawing at first. The moment Seal unleashed the ability to change, an otherwise impossible force fluctuated through Veilgrind's body. Then, gently wrapped her whole body. Uniting the King of Charity and the King of Covenant of Veilgrind, the Scorched Dragon, and evolving into the Flame God Cthulhu a success. Seal declared aloud in a solemn voice full of fantasy. In this moment, Veilgrind was freed from all bondage. Just as I nodded my head repeatedly at Seal's words, my King of Covenant was also transferred out. Although I gave my permission, it's normal that I can't help but feel at a loss at times like this. After all, it was the equivalent of the King of Covenant that combined the ties of his companions. There is no question. What is united into the King of Charity is nothing more than the dregs of the King of Covenant. The essence of the power will be inherited by the new King of Harvest. Huh? The questions are endless. There's always a hunch that Seal Sensei has done all sorts of super awesome work when I didn't know of it. I'm afraid to ask in detail, so I'm just going to focus on Veilgrind. Unification can work better than anything. Congratulations, Miss Veilgrind.
Now, it's okay to take you outside.
I was hitching a ride with a smile on my face, but somehow Veilgrind glared at me with a very scary expression. It's not that I didn't have a clue why she reacted this way, so I unconsciously averted my gaze. I really want to question you about all sorts of things, but I'll let it go for now. So, this is going to free me now, huh?
It seems to be okay already, I nod.
According to the seal, because it gave the Covenant King Uriel to Veilgrind, Rudra's spirit seems to be reacting to her. So it's no longer impossible to find the pieces and recycle them, in a nutshell. Hearing that made me think. The remnants of what seal calls the heart of Rudra's form, and the core of the King of Covenant, are actually the same. That being the case, it's now the equivalent of Rudra and Veilgrind being together a lot. While it is unsettling to find the soul of Rudra scattered throughout the world, there is a feeling that Veilgrind will be able to do so. Then first, liberate yourself. Just like that, the three of us returned from the spirit world to the present world. The feeling of time being prolonged lingered, so we said goodbye to each other. Thanks, Rimuru, for the trouble. It really was. I actually have a lot to complain about. However, pissing off Veilgrind would be horrible, so I'll just shut up. Now, your parallel existence is also connected to me, so don't worry about getting lost and not coming back. I think it's going to be tough though, go for it. A little bit of solidarity. But that's when it happened. Sister, even if it's not possible, I'm still here. Don't worry, just relax and go for it. Veldora said with a bright smile. It doesn't matter what the atmosphere is capable of, it can only be said that it really lives up to Veldora. Veilgrind also seemed troubled as to what response to make, and her final response was, "You really are an idiot, a stupid, cute little brother. I'm glad you're safe." Veilgrind finished coyly and smiled. Then for some reason, she stared at me again. Being seen super close by beautiful women made me nervous to move a muscle. Seeing the look of a small deer in my heart, Veilgrind somehow shook her head breathlessly. So, goodbye. With these words, Veilgrind departed with a valiant shift. There you go. The next thing is to go back up Benimaru and the others. Do you want to come too? Of course. Time-wise, it's actually been less than a minute, and the onslaught against Michael is still going on right now. Although it did not work for the castle guard, it was the right thing to do. Because the moment the attack stops, the enemy's attack will begin. So whether it was Benimaru or Diablo, neither of them stopped Xion and the rest, but chose to watch from the sidelines. There are only two enemies. I really want to take them all down right here, but unfortunately that's not going to happen. As long as there is a castle guard, the attacks will be useless against Michael. Only, the conditions are the same for everyone. Ha 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 ha. What a pity, your attacks are completely ineffective against Lord Michael. Feldway laughed loudly, aiming for the gap between our attacks and preparing to launch the power. The Demon Lord's name doesn't seem to be called in vain, and he seems intent on exiling all of my companions present to the otherworld. Goodbye, everyone. Though there should be no more. What? He wasn't the only one targeting the attack gap, and neither was I. In order to stop Feldway, I appeared on the battlefield. The Demon Lord Rimuru. It's our first meeting, Mr. Phantom King Feldway. Hearing my deliberately mocking tone, the Phantom King's smile disappeared. The hick with no manners. On. I don't want to be told that by an aggressive race that has always had visions of the city. After further provocation, the other party's expression became like that of an evil spirit. The type that doesn't get excited and calmly build up anger. And the most troublesome opponent. Just then, Michael, who had been silent, interjected with an air of ease. So, you're not hiding to watch me anymore? I thought that you were trying to use the sacrifices of your companions to find a way to get around me. I didn't think of sacrificing my companions at all, but he was half right, but it didn't matter. What do you think is your freedom, and compared to that, why don't we just end it here? Humph, you're very proud. Do you think you've beaten me? Who knows? But let me just give you a word of advice up front. I know all about your power, whether it's the absolute domination of the angelic skill series, or the fact that it will never be broken as long as there are people who believe in you, such as the castle guard. After this there will be no need to say any more. Won't turning the empire into scorched earth and destroying everything that lives take away your advantage? This is total bluffing. I don't have any idea in my head that I'm going to do it all. But if the possibility of companionship sacrifice is weighed on the scales against this practice, I should have practiced it without hesitation. That kind of awareness, I would have done it a long time ago. It seems that I have underestimated you too. Shouldn't he be hostile to you? Exactly. Whether you are aspirational or have a noble calling has nothing to do with me. There are actually parts of your purpose that resonate with me, so I won't interfere with anything you want to do as long as it doesn't get me in trouble. However, it was too late. Michael, who has already begun to lose control, will no doubt bring us calamity. For the time being, I can predict that Michael will have a conflict of interest with us in any case in the future. That being the case, I'll just have to act on it with conviction. Michael seemed to ponder something and lapsed into silence. That being the case, let's get my thoughts across clearly to him. If anyone dares to strike at me and my companions, I will crush them so completely that they will never be able to do such stupid things again. To inject terror into their hearts. Indeed, I have no means of breaking the castle guard at the moment. However, I have a reliable partner, Seal. Seal must be able to figure out how to crack this trick. What's more, I will show no mercy if you dare to strike at my important companions. No matter what means are used to defeat Michael, I swear in my heart. So it is, huh? Then, I will retreat first. Is it really possible, Lord Michael? Hearing Feldway's surprised question, Michael raised his head to indicate his retreat, to say that the time has not come, and so shall we be. If we fight here, I don't think either side will be satisfied in the end. I feel the same way. With the means I just mentioned, it is indeed possible to win. But to do so violates my purpose. I don't deny that the current approach is just to put off the issue, but now just buy time, and that's really what I mean. Well, let's break up for today, shall we? All right. Having said that, on a day that was supposed to celebrate my complete resurrection, there was actually such an unexpected trial. I thought Guy Crimson was the biggest obstacle, but I didn't realize that the one holding me back was an insignificant slime. Leaving these words, Michael and Feldway departed. Where they go back, it's not the Empire. Because my surveillance magic, Argos, didn't catch any reaction. The report from Moss is also only 3 words without exception. What a shame. Where the hell did they go? Can't even figure that out now. Hearing my uncontrollable grumbling, Benimaru laughed. But, Lord Rimuru, we're all safe and sound, so we should go home and celebrate. So to speak. Well, let's go back. I'm already tired today and feeling as if I'm hungry too. Let's ask Shuna to prepare some delicious meals. It's a party, isn't it? That's not so bad. I nodded to Veldora. Go back and celebrate. Hearing my words, everyone's expressions turned to smiles. Although there are still problems to be solved, I would like to congratulate you all on your safety and thank you for that. Veelgrind continued to travel. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow too. The footsteps never stopped, and Veelgrind kept moving forward. At that time, the place where Veelgrind and Rimuru had flown to was an otherworld that had transcended even time, and after she had successfully merged with the parallel existence that had been knocked out by Feldway, she found herself in the middle of an otherworld with no direction at all. 1 without atmosphere and 2 without earth, without even a sense of time. Veelgrind had to keep drifting. If Veelgrind hadn't been a dragon race, I'm afraid she'd be in the wild, but she has space domination and unlimited life. Veelgrind had plenty of time to think before arriving at a place where she could settle herself. Those unbelievable things that had happened to themselves had already given Veelgrind's mind over. The amount of intelligence exceeds the amount of processing. Such an extraordinary state of affairs as drifting through otherworldly space had instead restored Veelgrind's composure. Veelgrind began to think. The intelligence was so large and unusual that Veelgrind gave up trying to figure it out thoroughly, only to think about it when time allowed. Then, more than anything else, she thought of one thing. The fundamental question is why Veelgrind was able to regain her freedom against the system constructed by her own brother. The man who made this phenomenon possible, Veelgrind could only think of one. That slime with the fluttering attitude. The demon lord, Rimuru, her brother's ally. Does it mean? That slime. Even an ultimate skill can be freely rewritten, granting Veelgrind freedom and making the powers more powerful, evolving to a higher realm. It's definitely not something that regular people can do. Such a ridiculous thing, only my elder brother could do. If, indeed, there is someone who can imitate this behavior. The unbelievable imagery made Veelgrind shudder. When she tried to turn her consciousness inward, the ultimate skill of the King of Flame immediately reacted, and with a strength that the King of Charity could not match. And most importantly, it was as if a connection had been constructed with Rudra's heartbeat, and the fragments that were absorbed would give a reaction. Heck, it doesn't even matter what that slime's true colors are. He is Rimuru, an ally of Veldora, and my benefactor. This is what Veelgrind concludes. Finally getting rid of the thinking back circle Veelgrind and turning consciousness to reality. Across countless worlds and ages, Veelgrind continues to collect fragments of the soul. I love you, Rudra. The thought of single-mindedly wanting to see Rudra had allowed Veelgrind to cross countless difficulties, and then, finally, in the midst of a metropolis lined with tall buildings, she spotted the teenager. Rejoice, resolve. The teenager, in possession of all the other pieces. Next, adding the fragments held by Veelgrind. However, was it really good to do so? Veelgrind became bitter about it. If this was done, the teenager's fate would surely change dramatically. Veelgrind had an infinite lifespan, and she was perfectly capable of guarding the teenager until the end of his life. That's right, there's nothing to be anxious about. I'd like to meet you as soon as possible, but you can't be too anxious. With that thought in mind, Veelgrind turned her back on the teenager and prepared to stride away. However, at this very moment, the shards of lightning flew towards the teenager according to their will. The fragments of the soul, which no one could see, merged with the teenager as if absorbed, and the impact of this process caused the teenager to disappear directly from the world. Now in Veelgrind's hands, only the beginning piece remains. Do you mean, you too? Do you want to see me as soon as possible, too? If only that were the case, Veelgrind thought to herself as she leaned towards the shards with a question. And then, in order to catch up with the boy, she unleashed the King of the Flame.